5 men they accused of drugs charges. They dumped their lifeless bodies on a nearby hill, but one of them, shot in the chest, was playing dead and escaped. That man now is set to testify against the officers who he claims are guilty of murder. This case is the first significant legal challenge to President Duterte's drug war, which has seen more than 7,000 people killed in just 7 months. Well, our Southeast Asia correspondent Tom Rayner has more now from Quezon City.
The grief is so familiar. It's felt by thousands of families caught up in this drug war.
Tapos bakit yun ang nasa utak ko? Bakit ginaganyan nila? Yun lang, yun ang iniisip ko, yun. Mambabasura lang kami. Nabubuhay kami sa basura, hindi naman kami yung mga sa tao.
She's talking about the death of her eldest son, Marcelo, one of 4 young men apparently killed by police officers here in the Payatas Hills.
Yung lugar na yun na namatayan, doon ko siya pinanganak, 1985. Pinatay siya noong 2016. 31 pa lang siya. Kaya mahirap isipin.
She tells us 7 armed officers in civilian clothing came here in late August while the young men were playing cards. Despite having no jurisdiction in this location, the officers claimed they'd found evidence of illegal drug use. She shows us where the young men were taken and shot one by one. In so many cases, that would have been that, with no one left to challenge the police account. But something almost unheard of happened here. One of the men survived. His name is Ephraim Murillo. The officers, it said, dumped the bodies here, and what they didn't realise is that Ephraim Murillo was still alive. He'd been shot in the chest, but was playing dead. And in the time that they weren't looking, he was able to scramble down this valley, very steep valley, to the stream below and then back up and get to the road where he was able to persuade someone to take him to hospital. He's now preparing to testify against the officers. For obvious reasons, his lawyers have been keeping him in hiding. But Ephraim's father and the families of the men killed are living in fear. Even after an unprecedented court order was issued that banned officers from intimidating them, their sense of danger remains.
Hindi po ako doon masyadong nagtitiwala dahil alam naman po natin ngayon ang mga ganyan na pwede silang gumamit ng ibang tao, hindi mag-uniforme, hindi natin makilala. Pwede nilang gawin yun.
But the lawyer representing this case says this is just the beginning.
The next step would be to really file criminal charges against the killers, and that would mean you will be filing murder and frustrated murder charges against them.
So as far as you're concerned as a lawyer, there is no question that this was a case of cold-blooded murder?
Definitely, this is nothing but cold-blooded murder carried out by men in uniform.
Hello, huwag nang gumamit ng droga.
It is just the latest in a series of scandals that have implicated the Philippines National Police. Last week, President Duterte suspended all police drug operations, claiming up to 40% of officers were corrupt. In recent days, he's continued to publicly shame what he calls rogue cops. But critics say the culture of impunity is of Duterte's own making, having previously welcomed the mounting death toll and even pledged to go to jail himself in place of accused officers. This isn't just about corruption. These police officers, your men, have been given a green light to act in whatever way they see fit by the president. Isn't that the case?
No, I don't think so, because the president did not say anything about going beyond the law. What happened now? Some policemen went beyond the law. Look at us now. The president did not tolerate anything of it.
But for all the defensiveness, justice still feels distant in places like this. The case of Ephraim Murillo is the first serious legal challenge to Duterte's drug war, but it's unlikely to be the last. The verdict about what happened here will have resonance far beyond. Tom Rayner, Sky News, Quezon City.
Well, to talk about the situation in the Philippines a bit more, joining us from Central London is Anne Fordham, the Executive Director of the International Drug Policy Consortium. Thanks very much for your time. We saw in the report there an officer saying that effectively President Duterte has not allowed anyone to go out and be effectively street police to stop the drugs gangs. What do you think?
I think that as you saw there in that clip, I mean, President Duterte started this war on drugs. He definitely incited police officers to go out there and to kill people suspected of being involved in the drug trade. I think simply because he's now suspended police operations against it doesn't mean that the culture of impunity and extrajudicial killings won't continue. Apparently the Drug Enforcement Squad are still going to be involved in fighting the drug war, and also he has talked about including the military in these operations. So I think there is still concern that what's been happening over the last 7 months will continue.
Why is this legal challenge so significant?
It is significant. I mean, as I said, there's been a total absence of the rule of law and due process in the war on drugs in the Philippines, and actually now this testimony of the survivor of this, killing, basically, will be a first step towards reinstating due process into what's been a very troubling war on drugs, where the president has not adhered to Filipino law around human rights. It's a violation of international law. So the court case will sort of shine a light on that and show that it is out of line with legal provisions, and hopefully embolden others to come forward and question this approach in the Philippines. We know that although support for Duterte as a leader still remains relatively high, there is increasing concern within the Philippines around the approach of lawlessness and extrajudicial killings. Duterte said he wanted to make the Philippines safer, more secure when he started this war on drugs, but in fact, people in the Philippines itself feel the reverse is true. They live in fear. The last poll showed that 78% of Filipinos polled in that poll thought that they were at risk themselves of being caught up somehow in extrajudicial killings, or their loved ones might be.
Is there any safety guaranteed there is a witness coming forward here, and that sounds like it could be extremely dangerous. What guarantees that witness doesn't get targeted potentially?
I think it is. I think he's incredibly brave. I think his family is incredibly brave in supporting him. There are no guarantees. However, it is that the fact that he is now in the media and in the limelight, I think that's important. That will perhaps guarantee him some safety. But yes, I do think that it is a very worrying situation, and I do think there are other cases where witnesses to what the police or vigilante killers have done have themselves later been either threatened or killed.
And just finally, what more could the international community do to try to influence President Duterte with such a rash policy?
It is international condemnation around the Filipino war on drugs, I think, continues to be important. But I think as we're hearing from the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial killings, Amnesty International recently released a report on this as well, that the reaction needs to come from within the Philippines initially. If more Filipinos question this approach, speak out against it, that will be the first important step. And of course, international condemnation of what's happening will embolden them and show them that there's support for questioning what is a very damaging and destructive policy.
Anne Fordham, thank you.
Thank you.
This is Sky News. Coming up, a new study has revealed the best